everybody. I hope you're doing marvellously well. It is the end of a relatively long day. Done quite a lot of video stuff.
Yeah, you were featured on a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, it was fun. And some podcasts and all kinds of stuff. Well, this is my good friend, Mr. Shawn Dealey, who, you're the head engineer here at Sweetwater Studios?
Yes.
And it's a Studio A.
Yes, this is.
Yeah. So what we thought we'd do is we do our usual FAQ Friday, so we're big, bad, and I am actually in black. But today, very unusually for me, I'm wearing a T-shirt courtesy of my wife, which is a Led Zeppelin one, of course. But I'm throwing a suit jacket over the top,
yeah.
So it's relatively smart. Relatively. Shawn's a fantastic engineer. I mean, got drum sounds up the other day. I was very impressed with those sounds, by the way.
It's an easy thing in a space like this, so it's kind of fun. But
yeah, I tried drums in there. I think you squeezed a bit more tone out of the drums than I would anticipate. Although you did have Nick playing drums.
Yeah, that always helps. This is home turf, so it's great. It's fun.
That's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to bounce our FAQ Friday questions off Mr. Dealey here. So I've got 13 potential questions fished out by His Highness Sir Derek von Erickson. So what should I pick here? I'm going to start with, why are there multiple pairs of speakers in a recording studio? Oh, look.
Yeah, we do have multiple pairs in here. I am a firm believer in having a single reference set of speakers. So in the room that I mix in, I have a single set of speakers that I work on, some PMC 82 XBDs. When I'm working in this studio and had worked in here for many years, solely on the ATCs and have a really good trust in what they're doing, I find I get myself more confused when I have more options. So if I'm flipping between speakers and second guessing what I'm doing, then that sort of takes longer. So I find that having a single set of reference speakers that I use as my reference keeps me working more efficiently. So it's nice to have some options. I like listening to music on some different stuff and checking things, but I know that a lot of studios do have multiple sets, but for me, when I'm actually
like your
working,
studio, for instance.
Yeah, when I'm working in a room, I focus on one set of speakers and work on them. So.
Well, I suppose for me, I have ulterior motives. I do have multiple sets of speakers, usually because I want to showcase different price ranges. You know, people come to us to hear what our opinions are. So we'll have like $300 speakers in the middle. And then we go all out to, we have the Trio 11s. We have, those are Trio 6s, new speakers, check them out. We also have Genelec 1032s and 8351s and the Scanner ones. I feel like I have a responsibility to showcase lots of different things so people can relate to it. But I do agree. What I tend to do is pick a pair of speakers, work on them 95% of the time, and then flip over and just double check.
Yeah, and I think that that's even, on the different price ranges of speakers, finding a set of speakers that you trust and that work well in your room is a big part of this whole process of finding, trying different speakers, upgrading. But I really feel like speakers to me are the most important piece of equipment in a studio. They do represent what you're doing, and if you can't hear what you're doing, then there's no point in doing that. So I
presume well-treated room?
Yeah, that really makes a big difference. I mean, you'd be surprised, placement and stuff. Like we had the luxury of before we put the console in, we had this room completely empty. And so we took our big speakers, slid them around, and I think we got them in the best possible spot in this space. But we do have a Russberger design control room with treatment and things like that. So you're in a smaller space. I'm very much accustomed to Gorilla acoustics, and I've made very, elegant looking acoustic panels out of the coolest fabric I could find, so I could, treat a small room I was working in. So it's something that I think a lot of people, you buy a nice set of speakers, you throw them in a room that sounds bad, that's not gonna, equal success all the time. So
absolutely. Do you like working on headphones as well?
I am not a big fan of headphones. I split my time doing a lot of live sound. I quite enjoy monitoring at a moderately loud level, so I kind of enjoy the energy from a speaker, but headphones are usually something that I end up not getting great results from, so I've yet to really find the perfect set of headphones to work on.
What is a perfect set of headphones to you?
When I put it on the speakers, it sounds like it did on the headphones, and I've always struggled. I have a couple sets. Sennheiser 650s have been a consistent thing, but I always find the low end deceives me on those. And so it's something that, having the luxury of being in a studio every day, I can always come in and check mixes, doing stuff at home or on a laptop. I can get pretty close, but those final few things, usually I need to check on speakers. So
here we are in a lovely studio. Why would someone go into a studio versus recording at home? And not just the obvious things like, recording drums, etc. Is there any other sort of...
Well, I mean, this is a purpose-built space for making music, right? So sonics are taken into consideration. Isolation, I think, is one of the biggest factors that, I started my recording career in my parents' basement, turning off the furnace and making sure there was no one walking upstairs so we could track and, like all those things. We're in a space here where we don't get, bothered by outside influence. There's a highway next to us. It doesn't rumble in the microphones and things like that. So the space was designed to have, isolation and good acoustics. We're also really well equipped for just about anything that could happen. So spur of the moment creativity hits. We're well stocked here with, things that can inspire performance out of someone or, allow us to go down some path that we, weren't planning on doing. So I feel pretty strongly. I've spent a lot of time curating and running and owning my own studios before I got to Sweetwater. So I've always felt pretty strongly about, working in a studio. I've really worked hard to sort of have a space that I could work in and create music in. So I think that coming to a studio allows people to focus all of their energy on putting it into the project. When you're at home, lots of distractions and things like that. So
very good point. What are your 5, say, desert island microphones?
Quite love the reissue of the Shure 545. That's been sort of my new go-to dynamic microphone on a lot of sources, snare drums, guitars. The Sheps CMC6 MK4 stereo set of cardioid small diaphragm condensers, to me, are probably some of the most musical small diaphragm condenser microphones. We use them as overheads, acoustic, piano. They're just spectacular. The Soyuz 1973, which is a new condenser that those guys came out with, on guitar, to me, it almost sounds finished. Minimal amounts of EQ, really kind of, gets me to where I want to go without having to add anything. U47, have the luxury of having one here to use and have had the possession of a vintage one for many years. And so that's sort of like, if I want to record really amazing vocals, that is something that really kind of allows me to get there. The AEA R88 is a microphone that I don't think I have not used on a session for probably 15 years since it came out. I bought one, always in my drum recording setup. I love it on sometimes on Hammond, sometimes on piano, but really for like a drum room thing, that's like, it feels like I'm standing in front of the drum kit listening to it. So
a nice eclectic combination there. So why are control rooms and live rooms often oddly shaped?
This one has some definite odd shapes in it. I think that the intention on studio design in that capacity is to not have parallel walls so that reflections are not causing standing waves and cancellation of frequency when you're inside of a space. That being said, I have been in a lot of non-professionally designed studios that have parallel walls and more rectangular. And sometimes those rooms can be more exciting sounding when you're actually recording in them. So some of the acoustics in a square or rectangular box are a little bit more predictable when you do some treatment and things like that. But I think like the classic studio designs and when you're using an acoustician and stuff like that, they're really working to not have parallel surfaces so that you don't have standing waves and that hopefully that room sounds amazing once you start making music in it. We are very, very lucky to work in these amazing sounding and looking rooms. So with no parallel surfaces in pretty much all of them. So it's kind of a cool spot. Okay,
so let's talk a little bit about the studio. So if somebody was to come into the studio and hire it, what do they get? They get an engineer and an assistant, or...
Yeah, we're full commercial studio. I'm the chief engineer. I would be on a session if someone books some time. Jason would be my assistant. So we usually work together in tandem. I will flip the roles on that and help him on sessions if he's hired as the engineer or producer on something and vice versa. So we work together on that. So you get the people, the space, all of the equipment that's in the studio. So we have a pretty long list of actual gear in the studio. And then there's also one of the world's largest retailers attached to us here, which
I hear that.
gives us an opportunity to maybe track down a piece of gear that we may not have in the studio. So, we usually work long days here. When people are here making music, we like to kind of get into it, and it is a space that allows people to sort of have, ideas, and we can put it together with whatever we've got laying around. And I think that's a really cool thing. I think that's pretty unique. The sort of endless gear thing can kind of get a little daunting, but if inspiration sparks, we can get our hands on something. But we have an awesome collection of stuff: drums, guitar amps, guitars here. So
got a lot of gear.
Yeah,
a lot of gear. So I suppose just to wrap this up, last question. Of all the fun pieces of equipment, guitar amps and mic pre's and consoles and microphones, what's your favourite stuff here? What's the stuff that you always go back to?
Well, our console, our Rupert Neve 5088 here, to me is the one thing. When we put this console in, it really tied our recordings. It kind of pulled everything together. There's a sonic footprint of it that's extremely musical, very tactile. And so that's something that I think really kind of allows me to do my job the most effectively and get the best sounding recordings we can out of here. I mean, we have a lot of outboard gear and a lot of other things, but there's a lot of sessions where we just literally use the mic pre's and the EQs and the console, and it sounds amazing. And so
nice.
That's, I think, probably my favorite piece of the studio, and kind of makes my job quite easy because it does sound so good.
Fantastic. Well, Shawn, thanks ever so much.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone. That's another lovely Fact Friday here with Shawn Dealey at Sweetwater Studios. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
Please leave any comments and questions below, and any other future Fact Friday questions. Thanks. So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir. Adios. Goodbye.